to Sisterhood in 60. We are so excited that you're here. My name is Christy Little Jones, and I'm a relationship coach, a marriage and family champion, and the chief cheerleader for women all over the world.
Hello, ladies. My name is Nicole Clough. I am a creative. I am a mom of three amazing girls. I'm a minister and a speaker. I'm so excited you decided to join us. So, you want to know, right? What is Sisterhood in 60? Well, let me share it with you. We are so excited about this community of women that we want to share this opportunity for women to come together. We want to create a platform for us to speak to each other in a way where we encourage, cultivate, and celebrate each other. This is a community of women that bring their unique gifts and their unique talents, and we pull those things together in purpose, and we synergize and we move forward in the way God has planned and purpose for us to do it. This is a place for women to be able to have real conversations, to talk about real issues in relationships, to deal with real situations and circumstances. And we're not here to say we have all the answers. That's not what we're trying to say. But what we are saying is that we are here to encourage you and to walk through these situations together. Oh, we've been through some things in relationships, haven't we, sis? And
Yes.
so, because we have experience in it, we have longevity even in our own relationship. We want to encourage women to be able to come together in unity and support one another. This is an amazing community.
So good, sis. Thank you so much. And we are going to dive in to today's conversation because,
Let's do it.
yes, well, we all know that the internet is flooded with
Mhm.
comments, opinions, judgments, conversation about what happened at the Oscars 2022 when Will Smith slapped, smacked, whatever you want to call it, Chris Rock live on stage. And so today we're going to just unpack that a little bit, but we want to get into the deeper understanding or just the deeper assessment of
Mhm.
what that not only has done in relationship, what that does for relationships, and how so many of us wish we probably have, many of us have done that. We've thought about doing that, but we want to
Mhm.
just unpack that and talk about it. So, sis, I'm going to pass it over to you for you to kind of explain a little bit about for those who are watching who have not seen, right? What has taken place, if that's possible, just to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it. Now, there are some people who have absolutely no clue as to what's going on. They don't watch the Academy Awards, they don't watch the news, they probably live under a rock. So I'm talking to y'all, right? But as you know, Monday at the Sunday night at the Oscars, it was probably, as Chris Rock said, one of the greatest nights in television ever. Like, who would have thought that a comment as seemingly innocent from a comedian, it wasn't anything um it wasn't anything mean or nasty or hateful. It was a comment about hair, right? All right. So he made this comment about G.I. Jane to Jada because, as you know, because of alopecia, Jada has shaved her head bald. And so I'm sure, like any of us, as women, like our hair is our glory, right? Like all of us are in love with our hair in some way, shape, or form. We may love it, want to grow it long. We may want to rock it short, whatever the case may be. But if we lose our hair because of a condition, that is such a more difficult thing to deal with. A comedian, I don't think sometimes that's in the forefront of a comedian's mind, right? It's all about the laugh, it's all about the joke. And I hear that there was history here. So he made this comment, and at first there was a laugh, and then there was a very evident sense of
Yeah.
displeasure, disgust, disappointment from Jada. And at first, Will laughed about it, and then he realized. I think honestly, and I heard a YouTube review about this that probably didn't sink in, right? But once it did, unfortunately, Will Smith decided to walk up to Chris Rock on national television and pimp slap him. Yes, I said pimp slap him because of this comment. And then he goes back to his seat and yells, keep his wife's name out of his blankety blank mouth twice. In anger, it was emotional. It was everybody was stunned. The world was shocked. We had no idea what was going on. We're like, oh my gosh, what is this? Did this just happen?
Right.
And so it was one of those moments, I think, that was defining.
Yeah.
It was a situation where there were two instances that, in many ways, felt wrong in
Yeah.
the eyes of some. It was wrong to talk about somebody who has a condition, and it was
Right.
wrong to assault someone on television. So there's a lot to unpack in this conversation. But we want to say we're not here to cast judgment. I think as a mom of three teenage girls, I felt like Will Smith a few times. Now, let me tell you, back in the day, our grandmamas and mamas, we got smacked. World didn't see it. But we found ourselves picking ourselves up off the floor from time to time because you just get to a point where you're just not taking it anymore, right? So, and that would mean nonsense. Our family was no nonsense. We're not taking nonsense from you. But there's a lot to unpack in that moment, Chris. So, what went through your mind in that moment for you?
I I couldn't, it felt like I wasn't certain it was real. Like, I was like, well, was it stage? Is this fake? I was expecting something else to take place just because the way it happened. When he walked up on stage, very confident, very certain, paused a little bit, and then like literally leaned back and smacked him. And then Chris Rock's response, I was like, and then literally Will turned around, like kind of with like a smirk a
Well,
little bit and
mhm.
walked back off the stage. And so I was a little confused at first, but then when I realized that this was really happening, I was like, "Oh my gosh." I There were so many emotions that came flooding into my mind, from shock to embarrassment to um, just disappointment, and
Mhm.
a flood of judgments came. And, I just was really even sad because not only are these two amazing men in Hollywood, but
Mhm.
I thought that they were friends. I thought they were
Mhm.
like, just like there's a brotherhood especially among Black men in Hollywood. So I thought, and so I was very surprised. And to be honest, I didn't think that his comment about Jada was as offensive as she took it, because GI Jane was a bad girl. Like, so,
Mhm.
she was a bomb. Like, she shaved her head to make a point, like in the movie. And so I get and I understand why people were offended. I understand why she was hurt and offended by it, because she has shared for the last year her just hurt and fear and just discouragement around losing her hair. She was wearing
Mhm.
hats, doing her, Instagram lives and scarves and doing everything she could to hide it. And then finally when she came out about it, so I understand why she was hurt
Mhm.
and offended, for
Yeah.
sure. Um,
Mhm.
but I've heard, as a comedian, I've heard so many worse things, as far as where it's offended the whole audience, like,
Right.
and so,
Right.
so I think that there was a lot of emotion around it. And so I think that us talking a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the fact that he did this on stage as a big time celebrity in Hollywood. And even Chris Rock was about to present the award for Best Documentary. And, let's talk a little bit about the effects, just how emotions in relationships can, one decision from an emotional moment in your life can change your whole entire life. And I think as Love and Sisterhood, we need to not only talk about love, let's talk about relationships. And I'd love for you to address the part when he slapped Chris Rock, and then minutes later he won Best Actor for his role in King Richard. And then when he started talking about he's a vessel of love, he is, a protector, right? And so in that moment, I was very confused, because how can you be a vessel of love when you just slapped somebody minutes later? So talk a little bit about that when it comes to just even love and relationship.
That's a lot. That's a lot to really even dive into. But first, I want to acknowledge this, okay? Because I think it's so overlooked. I think it didn't get the acknowledgement that it should have. But Chris Rock handled that moment like a
Yes,
vessel of love, like a man full of integrity and class
for
and
sure.
professional. He handled it like a champion, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's not so much to throw shade on Will's side, because emotions get us going.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack about what he said in terms of love. We know as children of God, as women of God, we know and understand the biblical tenets of love. That's not even the right word, but we know what the biblical definition of love is according to the word of God. Love is patient. That's how it starts out. Love is patient and love is kind. So
Yes.
just if we stop at those two things, we can unpack a whole lot right
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Because that just wasn't kind. There were a whole lot of things that could have been done in that moment. I'm not Will Smith. I'm not Chris Rock. So I cannot even speak to that. But what I can speak to is when we talk about love, there is, he's right. He is called to be a vessel of love. But guess what? He's not the only person who's called to be that. We are
Mhm.
all called to be an expression of love. Because first and foremost, God is love.
Yeah.
And we are called to be an expression of that, of his love. And wanting to be a vessel and wanting to love others. Love is first and foremost unconditional. And so when he talked about being a protector, and when he talked about, he's called upon to love people, when he said that, the things that he said and his inflections really, to me, spoke so much more than what the situation was about. It
Yeah.
seems like, sometimes when we get to that point of having pent up anger, or we have something that's we've pressed down,
Yeah.
an offense or a hurt or something against someone, and at
Mhm.
any given time, it's almost like a ticking time bomb. Like there is a time when it gets to be too much, and then you respond. And that's how it felt. So here in
Yeah.
Love and Sisterhood, listen, as women, we all go through these types of situations with each other. Have opportunities to be offended, to be jealous, to be angry, to be frustrated, with our sisters. And we have to learn how to deal with these types of situations. We can't just go around slapping everybody. I mean, we just cannot. Okay. Life
Right.
does not afford us that luxury to just be
Yeah.
slapping everybody we upset with, or who gets on our nerves, or who says something that makes us angry. At the same time, we do have to confront things and issues when there is offense, when things have been done wrong. We have to learn how to do things in love.
Yeah.
And I think Will, at that point of his acceptance, understood, hindsight, the
Mm.
repercussions of what he had just done.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you say that because we have freedom of choice, but we don't have freedom of consequence, right?
So you say that a lot.
And if he had the foresight to really check his emotions the way Chris Rock did, like Chris Rock, I mean, amazed me. Like the fact that he didn't put his
Yeah.
hand on his face, the fact that
Yep.
he just said, wow, and had a comeback, right? I you talk about a discipline,
Yep.
right? An
Absolutely.
emotional discipline. And I think that this is a really great example for us as people to really look in the mirror because it's really
Mhm.
easy to judge. We don't know what was going on in either one of their minds, really, right? We can only assess or guess, make our best guess, right? But to really look at ourselves in the mirror because there are many times, and I'm
Mhm.
sure all of us have been angry enough where we
Mhm.
wanted to slap somebody in the face, or we were
Absolutely.
offended enough to slap someone in the face.
Mhm.
And we didn't because it's an assault, right? It could have, we don't know. We
Right.
don't know what the response would have been, right? We might have slapped
Right.
someone and they might have punched us out, beat us up, shot us, killed us. Like we don't know what the response was going to be. And so I feel like from that perspective, I think it's important to recognize that we we have a plank in our own eye, right? We can't judge
Mhm.
him because especially for those of us who were like, yeah, I've been that mad or I've been that hurt or I've been that offended where I may have wanted to do that. The only difference is we've had more emotional discipline, right? And
Right.
so I think that it's important to not judge, right? Important
Yep.
not to not judge because they played this out on a public, live, national, international stage, right?
Mhm.
We've done this to our spouses, we've done this to our sisters, we've maybe even done this with our children when we were
Yep.
offended or hurt or angry and we kind of lashed out on them. And I think the second piece of this is to really look at the response from Chris Rock's standpoint. And so I'd love for you to really talk and address the response in just from a relational standpoint of how Chris Rock responded.
You know, first of all, I'm not Chris Rock, so I can only go from what I could see at
For
this
sure.
moment. You know, as one of the most um, famous men in the business, I remember Chris Rock from years ago when he was doing his stand up um, at the Improv, and he is a man who I believe, first of all, he's a comedian. And so comedians get heckled all of the time, right?
All the
In his days of
all
growing up,
the time.
I'm sure he has taken um, many a hits
Yeah,
verbally from his audiences and probably
I'm
been in some
sure.
places where, Black folks weren't all that accepted. And I'm sure he's had to deal with some many offenses.
Yeah.
But what I love about Chris Rock in that moment as a consummate professional, he understood why he was there. He was able to even in his ability to process very quickly. At home we realized it was quickly, but when you think about it, he was able to almost step outside of that
Mhm.
situation and see it from a vantage point that afforded him the ability to come out on top in this situation. Now,
Yes.
there are many people who are going to say, well, what he said as a joke was wrong. Yes, it was. He's a comedian. Does it excuse him
No.
saying things? No. But he did not. say anything that was overly demeaning to her. And
Yeah.
so he handled his moment. He kept himself poised. He kept himself in a posture of being open, not only and being vulnerable, but also being a professional and realizing I am on the world stage. He probably wasn't even processing it in that way, like I'm on the world stage, people are watching, but he understood I'm at the Academy Awards. I was just assaulted. There are so many things that I could be doing in this moment, but I'm going to continue with doing what I was sent out here to do, and that is to present this next award. He no longer made it about himself. And I think
Yes.
that's one of the beautiful parts of love. Love, many times, it doesn't make things about itself. One thing the Bible talks about is that love doesn't seek its own, it's not
Mm,
puffed up with pride. And and so when love thinks the best of the other person, he probably could have went fisticuffs. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
If somebody come up and hit you, he could have went fisticuffs, but he realized that's not what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And I've got to compose myself. And so hands hats off to him, praise to him because he really uh he really walked this thing out with integrity and character. And I so respect him for it. And I believe he respects Will. And I believe that he hold or held Will in high regard, even if they had a little beef with each other, over the years, because of things that Chris may have said. But what I come to find out is that he didn't even write that joke.
No.
He didn't even write it.
Oh
It was
my.
written.
I did not
Yep,
know that.
yep. That he did
Oh,
not write it. At least that's what I was told. Someone who
well,
wrote,
you know
wrote
what's so
read the
interesting
article about it.
when you say that is how many times has someone said something to us and we relay the information, or we share the information, and the person we share it with gets really offended or hurt, or you lose a relationship because you've said something that someone else said to you, thinking that it was going to be a joke, thinking it was going to be funny, thinking that the other person was not going to be offended.
Hmm.
But it didn't even originate from us. It's not even something that we even thought of or thought about, but we conveyed it or relayed it, and now we are the bad guy, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So I think that really it's so important in relationships to look at yourself in the mirror and really
Hmm.
assess where you are. Do you need to grow? Are you an emotional person where everything is
Yeah.
attached to an emotion? Everything is attached to a negative perception or a negative experience. Like,
Yeah.
literally 90, I think it's 95% of people in the world are addicted to the negative emotions from their past. So people are
Yeah.
often triggered very easily because even
Hmm.
in relationship, you've left the person who hurt you, or you've divorced the person that betrayed you, but now you are with someone new and they do something that triggers like a reminder of something that happened in the past,
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden all those emotions come flooding back to your heart, to your mind, to your body, and the person
Hmm.
who triggered them, they don't, 9 times out of 10 they may
They're
not
clueless.
even know, right? They're
Hmm.
clueless that they triggered them. And then, but you're now feeling as if you were back in that past negative emotion, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about this process of how to forgive someone in the thick or the heightened moment of offense.
Wow. Well, uh, hmm. You know, that is such I think that is such a personal journey. It's not a blanket technique. It's not a blanket skill, but I think one of the things, as a believer, we are encouraged that if someone offends us, we need to go to them, and so the forgiveness part first, I believe, for me, would start in my conversation with the Lord, just about the whole thing, like, and really being honest with how I feel, and being honest with the disappointment I felt, the anger that I feel, all of those things. Because as you know, there's so many stages to offense, and you have to really go through all of those stages. You taught me this. So, you really have to go through all of those stages before you can really come to that place of forgiveness. And I think sometimes people mistake, forgiveness for it being a static type of situation, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's very dynamic, forgiveness is. I believe, just like there's layers to understanding the mind and dealing with, some of the things in our mind of how to get rid of negative thoughts and how to transform and change that. It's the same
Mhm.
thing with forgiveness. Peter asked the question to Jesus, well, how many times am I supposed to forgive this? 7 times? And Jesus was like 70 times 7 for that
Right.
one thing.
Yeah.
Because so that to me indicates that there's going to be opportunities not only for you to forgive that person again, but you to forgive that person for the same thing
Right.
490
Right.
times. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And so
Exactly.
we have to look at, that piece of forgiveness as it is layers. And it is a time and an opportunity for you to go back those things, to be honest, forgive, and learn how to accept and receive that person again. It's like, it's kind of like how, what is it, Pumbaa said in the Lion King, Akuna Matata. Like, you have to kind of forget about it. It's the past. You got to, like, put it in the past.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. One layer at a time.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you'll never feel those feelings again, but you have to acknowledge them, go through that process, forgive, and then keep moving forward. Because that's the only way to build relationships.
That's so good, sis. I think also it's it's a journey. We're
Yeah.
all have an individual path, and the biggest piece of this is being willing to do the work on you, right? Because that's all you can control. You can't control
Yeah.
anyone else. You can't control what they do, what they don't do, what they say it, how they do it, how they don't do it. The only person that you can control is you. And so, if
Yeah.
we could really take ownership and responsibility for doing the work to become the best version of ourselves, when we know, oh, I'm insecure about this, or I give my power away to fear, or, I'm really suck at forgiving people. I hold grudges. I don't like forgiving people. I'd rather
Hmm.
punish them and continue to punish them because it makes me feel better, right? So really,
Hmm.
us knowing that about yourself, I think, is so critical and crucial in developing healthy
Yeah.
relationships and cultivating
Hmm.
long, really strong relationships. And so I'd love for us to just kind of give people some summarizing some of the points that we can take away from this situation that is still under investigation with through
Yes.
the academy. And
Hmm.
we have no idea what's going to happen to Will. Some people are not going to follow him anymore. Some people feel like, oh, he was fighting for his Black woman, and like there's so many different opinions and judgments
Hmm.
around this situation. And so one of the things that we can say is that, number one, do not judge, right?
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing, because who are we to judge when we've probably experienced the
Absolutely.
same feeling of
Yeah.
anger or rage, or like even maybe not knowing what to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't, again, I'm always back to the word, honey. I'm a word girl. So the Bible says, judge not, lest you be judged. And the same thing that you judge, you're going to be judged for those things too. And so we have to allow ourselves to offer people grace.
Yeah.
We are not perfect. Every day we live in our human experiences. Will experienced a human side of who he is.
Yeah.
It was a human experience. And so, we all have these things living on the inside of us. And it got the best of him. As Denzel shared with him, when you're at your highest point, the enemy comes from you. I believe that, and I don't disagree with that. At the same time, we can't make the devil an excuse for our actions. We're adults. We know
Yeah.
better. And so I get it that, when it says the devil comes for you, it's right. It's like he's a tempter and he comes to tempt you, just like he did to Eve in the beginning, because what she did cost everybody. And so what he did now is going to cost at this point. And
Yes.
so he
And may cost
tempted him.
everybody.
It may cost everybody, right? And so he had opportunity to, between his walk and the snack, to make a change. And so that's where we have to, allow ourselves that grace between the anger and the action. We got to find the
Right.
grace so we cannot judge.
That's perfect. That moves me to number 2, to pause before taking action. Right.
Yes.
And so if we can get into that practice of pausing before taking action when we know that we're upset, we all know what that feels like. We
Yes.
know what that's like. We know, some people, they get hot behind the ears. Some people, start shaking. Some people start crying. Some people, like where that anger, and you just can't, you feel like you can't control it.
Yeah.
If you can get into the practice of pausing, taking a deep breath,
Mm.
walking away. I learned this when I had little kids, whereas I would never ever discipline them if I was angry, ever. Like, and it became a discipline, because when you are angry or you're sleepy, or there's, you're mad at your husband or something else, and you want to, and then your child says something, or they're whining, or they're tired, or whatever, you now are emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so important to know and recognize when you're emotional, so that you
Yes.
don't take action when you're emotional. People they do impulsive buying. Why? Because they're emotional,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Or they just, oh, I deserve this. And they buy something that they shouldn't be buying, or that they can't afford. And then there's regret afterwards, right? We have freedom of choice, but we don't have
Absolutely.
freedom of consequence. So pausing before taking action. And then this is yours right here. Choose love. Talk about it,
Choose
sis. Yes,
love.
talk about it.
Love is such a powerful weapon. It really is. It is one of those things that actually steals the enemy, because fear is actually the opposite. The opposite of love is fear, to be quite honest. And because that's how faith works. Faith works by love, And so if the enemy can get us into fear and get us out of love, then guess what? We short circuit our faith, right? And so we have to learn how to um, love despite the situation. My grandmother used to say this: just kill them with kindness, Nicole. Kill folks with kindness,
Yeah.
because then what you do is you just heap cold fire on their head, and that's such an interesting way of looking at things, right? But when we allow ourselves to love anyway and let God be our guide, He does something beautiful in you, because the loving anyway is for you, not really for the person.
For
Forgiving
sure.
is for you, not really for the person. And so you empower yourself each and every time you choose to love.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. Okay. We could talk about it. It's not an easy thing. When, your husband decides he wants to leave you, or, your husband cheats on you, or your boss gets you fired, in an unreasonable way, or your best friend, does something with your man, or, They treat you in the wrong way, or just any of those things that would cause you to fall out of love with a person, or seemingly, or not like them anymore. We have to look at that situation and really ask God for help and restoring and renewing our love on the inside of us. Because
Yeah.
if we don't, we can't move forward the way we're supposed to. So
Yeah.
choosing love is choosing to be empowered.
So good. So
Yeah.
good. Which leads us to number 4, decide to forgive. So one thing that
Mhm.
most people don't realize or understand is that forgiveness is not a feeling.
Right. It's a command.
Right. Forgiveness is not a feeling. You're not going to feel like forgiving, right? If somebody has offended you or hurt you or betrayed you or lied to you, you're not going to feel like forgiving. And so many people, the default usually is, "Oh, I need time. I need space." But let there be a trigger. That unforgiveness and that
Mhm.
feeling of betrayal and lying and cheating and all those things that really offend you come literally instantly
Flooding back.
back.
Yeah.
Instantly. So you've got to make a decision to forgive. That
Yeah.
when the way I love to explain it is, if I have this beautiful gift and it's in this really pretty bow with a pretty wrapping paper like they have
Mhm.
at Nordstrom's, and it's like everything is beautiful and it's creased in a perfect bow. Like I love receiving presents like that, right? So it's like you have this beautiful present and you give it to the person that offended you, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is beautiful," right? And they take it, but you never let it go.
Mm.
They're taking it, you keep holding on because you haven't really forgiven. You have to decide to forgive and
Mhm.
let it go. And then
Yes.
without any expectation in return. That's the hard part, right? And so
Whoo.
people, when they're offended, they want to punish, they want to get back, they want vengeance, they want all of these different things. But you've got to make a decision to forgive because, like you said about choosing love, it's for you, not for them. So when you choose to forgive, now you no longer
Mhm.
are haunted by
Absolutely.
negative emotion from the past, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
decide
That's
to
absolutely right.
forgive. And then the last one, go ahead, sis. Exercise emotional maturity. What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? I think emotional maturity is really something that we develop over time. And many times it's with intention. It's how we respond. It's one thing to have a temper tantrum as an adult, and so many adults do. Literally, like your 5-year-old that used to kick and scream in the grocery store. Adults have that same temper tantrum. And I believe our emotional maturity is something that we do on purpose and that we engage. Love to me is the foundation of it, because it's hard to mature in an area if you're first not rooted in love. I mean, you just have to be, and you have to understand who you are. And I think a lot of times our we try to our immature side comes out when there are many times some insecurities. There's a lack of confidence. You don't know who you are, and it's hard to really own your space and be able to engage something without being easily offended or angered or frustrated. It's there is a confidence and an assurance that comes in knowing you, knowing your purpose, knowing why you are here, and what you give to the world. Many times, we're grasping at other people because we want what they have, we're jealous, we're envious of them. And so those immature parts of us, just when you look at children who don't want to share, who want to share
Mhm.
a spotlight, share their toys, who are always competing. When you're confident in yourself, it's so difficult for you to have those types of immature engagements, because
Yeah.
you don't have time for that.
Right. Right. So good. So good. So, yes, this has been a week, right? This has
Yes.
been a week of so many opinions flying, and it's just been really, really challenging and really difficult. And so I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to really just kind of talk about it, talk through it a little bit, unpack it,
Hmm.
and really get to the nitty gritty of what's most important about relationships, and the emotionalism or the emotions that often can literally send you and your relationship to the left, right? Can take you all the way to the left. And so if we can
Yes.
really get a grasp on understanding our emotions and other people's emotions, and really be disciplining ourselves as we express our emotions or engage with other people, and really manage and discipline is, I guess, is the best word, then we can respond in situations like Chris Rock, right? We can be
Yeah.
mature, and really similar to what Michelle Obama said, like, when they go low, we go high,
We go high. That's
you
right. It's
know?
true.
And it's about
It's so
going
true.
high and responding in love and in sisterhood for sure. And so, do you have any final thoughts or words that you want to share?
Yeah.
So, what?
Um, I thought about this. Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Oh, I thought it went out for a second. Um, yeah, I thought about this, a lot. And I think one of the things that for me that was a little hurtful was it was my brothers. And I
Yeah,
just want to encourage us to keep them in prayer.
yeah,
It's of course, as I did say earlier, we don't play the blame game with the enemy, but I do know his tactics, and his tactics are continue to divide and to separate, because unification and oneness has power.
yeah,
My final thoughts are this: keep Will and Chris in your prayers, keep their families in your prayers, so that there can be a reconciliation in their lives. Because
yeah,
I think as men in the industry and in Hollywood, they are better together and unified than they are divided, because there are other relationships that are on the fray, as well, where these relationships are concerned. They cross so many different connections. And so instead of having people pick sides, unify and come back
yeah.
together, forgive one another, and move forward in power.
So good. Thank you so much, sis. We
Yes,
also
sis.
want to thank you for watching us live here at Sisterhood
Yes.
in 60. And those of you who may watch the replay, thank you for joining us. Thank you for just spending this time with us. And we'd love
Hmm.
to hear how you felt about
Yes.
this situation. So please put all of your comments in the chat, because we want to know what you thought, and your opinions, and really just have a conversation about it all. And we also want to invite you to join Love and Sisterhood. We want you to join us at Love and Sisterhood. We want you to subscribe to our live YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And so you can do that by going to bit.ly/, join Love and Sisterhood. And again, we want to thank you so much for being here. And so
Thank
I want to give
you.
the final words to Nicole as we get ready to close out.
Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us here at Love and Sisterhood. This is a place where we feel like it's a safe place to have conversations, to have real talk. We want to say, look, y'all, this is come to the hood, to the sisterhood, because this is the place we're going to keep it real. We want you to feel comfortable here. We want you to know that we have your best interest at heart, because we want to come together in purpose. We want you to know that your gifts and your talent mean everything to us. And what you bring to the world is amazing. So we're excited for this platform. We're excited for this opportunity. So we so invite you to join us and get ready for a ride, because it's going to be amazing.